Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Maureen, the senior pastor here at the Congregational Church of Amherst. It's Wednesday afternoon, May 13th, and I usually give an update every week about what's going on in our church. And while things haven't changed much from last week, we're still in a wait and see stance to see what's going on in our state as it gradually opens up. And that will inform our decision going forward into June and July, how we might think about gathering or think about continuing as we are being church virtually for a little longer than we had planned or wanted. But right now I want to talk about this. This is an N95 mask. Now, we've seen these all over the news. We've seen them all over our faces as we wear these to protect ourselves in light of the coronavirus. This particular one came out of the stash we had in our youth room closet, as we had a box of about 75 of these that we had purchased for previous mission trips when we were working on construction sites and we needed to protect ourselves from the dust and the fumes in the air. This is the last one I have left. This one was used, so I kept it. The others have long ago been donated to St. Joe's all the way back in March to meet the need of our healthcare workers. But it's interesting as I look at this mask, and I remember when we were on the work sites and we told our teenagers, we had about, I think, 30 teenagers in our group in the years that we were doing those mission trips on the construction sites in Tennessee and Kentucky, New Orleans, and thought of wearing these on the site. It was interesting to see with the teenagers how they reacted. Some heard about how it would protect you from the fumes and the dust in the air, and they wore them religiously because they realized that there was a danger involved and they wanted to make sure they were protected. Others looked at it and said, nah, I don't really need that. I'm not worried about it. It makes me hot. I can't speak right. So they chose not to wear them. And others would take a look around and see what their friends were doing. If their friends were wearing, or most of the group was choosing to wear them, then they would wear them as well. So it's interesting how our decision about whether to wear a mask or not is based on, it tells us a lot about who we are and what we base our choices on. As we see in the general public now, as we walk around and see people choosing to wear masks or not to wear masks. And the heightened conflict that's arising out of this as we hear people getting into fights in stores as they see someone who's not wearing a mask when they think they should, or if they're being asked to wear one and they don't want to. This is a lightning rod right now, and I'm not here to tell you whether you should or you should not wear a mask. I'm here to talk about what it means to live in community, especially as a community of Christ, what it means to love thy neighbor as thyself, which is that greatest commandment that Jesus gives us in the Gospels. And we might say the entire 10 commandments, the entire Bible can be boiled down just to that one commandment, to love one another as we love God and love ourselves. So if we think about what loving our neighbor looks like, and how that relates to wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And for me, loving our neighbor is about understanding, listening to one another, making an attempt to understand one another, why we make the decisions we do or why we think the way we do. And then offering each other grace when that decision or that way of thinking doesn't really jive with how we might choose to be in the world or think in the world. Though neither one of those things is easy. Trying to understand or offering grace are not easy, especially when we're dealing with something that we see as a threat to our community. And you might say this making a decision to wear this or not is not a fashion decision. It's not choosing to wear a coat in the winter or eat vanilla ice cream rather than chocolate ice cream. It's not a decision like that. It's a communal decision, and we might equate it to other things that we do in community that we may not necessarily want to do, but we do for the benefit of all, like stopping at red lights or in getting ourselves vaccinated or getting our children vaccinated or not storing explosives in our homes, things that we might want to do but are not necessarily safe for the community at large. So you can frame wearing a mask in that regard. But if we're trying to understand one another and think about what it is someone is saying when they are wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, we can think negatively. We can think, are they saying, I don't care about you? I don't care about your freedoms, so I'm going to make you wear a mask. Or I don't care about your health, so I'm not going to wear a mask. Are they saying that, or are they saying, I'm afraid? I'm afraid of getting sick, so I wear a mask, and I would like you to wear one too. Or I'm afraid of the danger of this virus that I cannot see. So I would rather not live in a world where something like that exists, or I choose not to acknowledge that something like that exists. I'm not saying that it's being deception or you're deceiving yourself. I'm just saying we all decide whether a risk is something high enough that we need to acknowledge. And there's fear involved in that as well. And whether we're afraid of the virus, so we wear a mask, or we're afraid of the virus, so we don't wear a mask because we don't want to admit that it's as scary as we might not want to think about. Those are just a few of the things that people may be thinking when they choose to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. I'm not saying that that is what you are thinking if you've made a choice to or not to. I'm just saying that we don't know what's in someone else's mind. And people make decisions and choices for all sorts of reasons. And it may not be because they don't care about us or they don't love us. And that's essentially what it's down to. When we see someone making a decision that's not what we would do, we automatically go to, they don't love us enough to do the same thing that I'm doing. And that may not be the case at all. So that's where the listening and the understanding comes in. Even if we can't go up to them and ask them, excuse me, why are you choosing not to? Or why are you choosing to? You can take a step back and say, okay, maybe I don't know the reason, but I can understand that this is something that they themselves have chosen to do. And I choose, instead of getting angry or wanting to punch them or, put them down in any way, put them in a bad light, judge them, I will say, I choose to love you and I choose to offer you grace for whatever it is that you're carrying, just as I am carrying something. So this is part of living in community, is to make those little, we might say, mental gymnastics to get along with one another, to not assume the worst, and to always go back to that default of loving our neighbor and thinking about what that looks like in the world. So whether you choose to wear a mask or not to wear a mask, give one another grace, give one another love, and we will do our best as a community here in town and here in our church to get through what it is we're going through together. In the love of God. So until we speak again next week, be well and be safe and God bless.